Well, hello and good morning. Welcome to Secular Bible Study, where we are going through the Bible from front to back, Genesis to Revelation, from the viewpoint as if it was just a book and not necessarily the Word of God. I am Mary Preston. I'm a licensed therapist in Colorado and a life coach, and I have been studying very strongly religious trauma recovery recently. So wanted to go through the Bible from front to back. Um, the books that we are using, I am mostly using the King James Study Bible. If you want to follow along with this book, there's a whole lot to mark down. This is written by authors who believe that the Bible is inerrant. So it's a really fascinating way to take a look at the book itself from that perspective. And then the other book I'm using is The Skeptic's Annotated Bible. This is a really fun one. It already goes through and it talks about like, okay, violence, that's cruelty, asks a lot of questions. It's a really good way to read the Bible if reading something like the King James Study Bible is a little too triggering for you, because honestly, sometimes it's really hard to read these stories and see what the authors say about it. It's kind of painful to see what they think we should believe. So today we're going over the story of Dinah. So I don't know. Oh, opened right to it without my marker in there. So I don't know if you remember the story of Dinah. I actually didn't remember that it existed. And then I was just reading the old Bible as I've been doing, and I ran across this. And in the study Bible, everything has a little chapter title, which is just, it's not in the original text. It's a little letting you know what's coming up. And so I'm reading, and the next chapter's not next chapter, next little piece is called Dinah Defiled. Ooh, that sounds like it's going to be an interesting story. Defiled already, starting off with some strong language that feels really gross. So I'm reading, and multiple times my husband was sitting in the room with me, and I just kept, oh. I made a lot of noises while I was reading this one. Trigger warning. There is sexual assault and cruelty and violence in this story. So that's not for you. Turn her off. Don't watch the rest of this. For the rest of you joining along, I'm going to give a little summary. I write my own summary when I go over these. Again, the title of this this is Genesis chapter 34. You need to pause and find that in your own Bible if you're following along with me. And they call it Dinah Defiled. Ugh, off to a great start. Okay, so here's my summary. So Dinah, who is Jacob's daughter through Leah, goes out to see the daughters of the land, whatever that means. And then Shechem, who I looked at the announcement of that, son of Hamor, saw her, took her, seized her is another translation, and then defiled or violated or lay with her by force. Those are the potential translations, and I say all of them because there's some questions. The SBA, the Study Bible authors, say lay with her and defiled her. That's their interpretation of this, and we'll just go with that for now. So anyway, so Dinah goes out to see the daughters of the land, whatever that means. Shechem takes her by force, lays with her, defiles her, violates her. And then next verse turns out Shechem really loves Dinah. He's really attracted to her, so he speaks to her affectionately or kindly is another possible translation. And I'm not really sure how we're supposed to feel about that. But the wording makes it sound like maybe we should feel good about this. So then he says to his daddy Hamor, "Get me this young woman for a wife." And Jacob hears, Jacob, again, Dinah's father, Jacob hears that Dinah has been defiled, in quotation marks, that's what the book says. But he waits for all of his sons. Remember, I think he's got 11 sons, and then Dinah. I think. Don't quote me on that. That's not a fact. I just said that out loud. Wait for his sons to get home before he's going to make any decisions about this. So she's been defiled, waiting for the kids to come home so we can, and they're adult kids at this point, so we can make decisions. Meanwhile, Hamar, Shechem's dad, came to talk to Jacob, and the brothers, on their way back from the fields, hear that Dinah's been defiled. So Jacob's meeting with Hamar. Sons are on their way home. They hear the news. And they are outraged. They say, such a thing should not be done. So they're headed back. Hamar and Shechem are bartering for Dinah. They're like, we can intermarry. Apparently this is a bonus. We can intermarry. You give us your daughters, we'll give you ours. And please, 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 I'll give you anything. That is my interpretation, not what it says in the book. Basically, they're like, we got lots of riches. We can share them. Daughters given, daughters received. It's going to be amazing. This sounds like such a good deal. So Jacob's sons, and they don't say, at this point, they don't say Dinah's brothers. These are Jacob's sons. Are like, well, apparently they're home now. So they come from the field, they hear the news. Jacob, Hamar, and Shechem are all chatting. The sons are back, and they're like, you know what? It's really unfortunate because you're not circumcised. So tough luck. And tough luck, you can't marry her. They note in the Bible they are intentionally deceiving Hamar and Shechem. We already know this. Before we hear what happens next, their intentions are to deceive. So they offer, if all the men in your town, in your city, whatever, get circumcised, we can intermarry and you can have Dinah, right? So all of the things you offer, great, 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 as long as everyone gets circumcised. Shechem's like, awesome deal. They go home. They tell everyone at the gate about the great deal they just made. The people see the benefits. And so everyone is in agreement. Let's do it. And again, so they're at the gate. Apparently that makes a difference in some translations or whatever. So they're at the gate. All the men get circumcised. And then on day 3, while they're apparently on day 3, I had to look this up. On day 3, there's a lot of swelling, potentially some fever, right? Because circumcision, it's a little hard on the body. So on day 3, while all the men are extremely sore, because, circumcision, Simeon and Levi, now called brothers of Dinah, by the way, now that they're about to, no longer Jacob's sons, these are brothers of Dinah. Interesting. Anyway. Okay, so Simeon and Levi, day 3, all the townspeople, all the men, obviously have been circumcised. They're not feeling so hot, feeling a little weak. Simeon and Levi go into town, take their swords, and kill all of the men. All of them. And then it says very specifically, also take their swords and kill Hamar and Shechem. They take Dinah home, we presume. It just says that they get her. And that's the last we hear of Dinah. That's all that she matters, apparently. So they kill all the men, and then they take Dinah, and then the rest of the brothers are like, well, you started something, so we'll finish it. They finish the job. They take all the livestock, all the women, all the children, all the wealth, and they loot the homes. And Jacob, father of all of these folks, he's big mad, very mad at Simeon and Levi, specifically because he doesn't have enough men to fend off any retaliative attacks. Not because he killed a town full of humans, but because he can't defend himself. Against whom? I don't know, maybe neighboring towns, because it says they killed off all the men, but whatever, not important. He's very mad. We don't have enough people to fight back. And they're like, whatever, Dad. And then they say, should our sister be treated like a prostitute? Harlot, I think. Should our sister be treated like a harlot? And at first I was like, oh, a little bit like, that's so nice in a weird way that they would kill a whole town full of people because Dinah got raped. But the truth is, I learned later that they just care that their honor has been questioned. They, it's not actually about how Dinah's feeling. End of story. That's it. Wow, that's such a great story. I have a lot of questions. So here we go. Let's so. First, I wanted to share. I made a little note here. I read as a note in the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website because I was like, what? What do people feel about this particular story? What are we supposed to be learning? And the Conference of Catholic Bishops, they summarized ominously, the situation is left unresolved, with Jacob concerned about the whole family and Simeon and Levi concerned only about the honor of their full sister. Oh, all they're worried about. The danger to the family from narrow self-interest will continue in the Joseph story. So what we're getting from this story is that we shouldn't have narrow self-interest. That's what we're learning, I guess. So anyway, so that's the takeaway from the Catholic bishops. Cool. So on to my questions. I have a lot of them that are not going to be answered, but I just feel like we should ask them out loud. So first things first, Dinah, right? She's not really, nobody really cares about her, apparently, because we don't know, how does she feel about Shechem? It's kind of vague, this whole part, because it's called a defilement. And that indicates that it doesn't matter. But what we don't know is that whether or not this was a rape and he forced her, or did he seduce her, right? Because then he's like, I love her. In nowhere does it say Dinah did not want this, right? Did Dinah sneak off and have a little fun with Shechem? Did they fall in love? Because they're like out in the fields. We don't know how long these people hang out with each other. Where did they run into each other? What were they doing? There is none of that information. There is an assumption in a lot of these translations that Shechem found her and raped her. But again, they use the word defile, which is a word that indicates that it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that sexy time happened. So it's just a question. Again, we don't know. But we'll just assume it's rape, right? As these folks translating that it was a forceful. Cool. So in that case, right, I am, well, then I am outraged, right? We assume it's rape. My current self is outraged due to the rape, that Dinah was hurt and forced to have sex with someone she doesn't know or like, apparently, right? That's she raped. So she said no. She said no, and was forced into it anyway, right? And so I am outraged by that, right? Like, that is a terrible thing. So there's a lot of outrage in this story by Jacob's family. However, are they angry because she was raped? Because Dinah was hurt? Because she has been traumatized? No. They are all angry because she is no longer a virgin. And also very upset that these folks, apparently very angry that they're not circumcised and that they are not of a certain type of people. They're supposed to be able to intermarry and have sexy time with the daughters of Jacob and Israel and such. So a lot of outrage, but not really for the reasons that we would like to think there is outrage. Because apparently, when a woman is defiled, the man must make it right by marrying her. That's how you fix that. But this is deemed rape. I looked this up. It's deemed rape since it was in the fields where no one can hear if she cried out. So apparently there was a law. So like if you're in town and you cry out and people hear you, it's deemed a rape. But if nobody hears you while you're in town, consensual. That's the decision made. That's how we know whether it's rape or not. But apparently, if you're in the field, we don't know if you've screamed out or not. So if you're lucky enough to get raped in the field, we just assume that it's rape. Again, although also it seems it doesn't matter if you wanted it or not. So I guess that's a bummer, right? I actually wanted this. They're calling it rape because it happened in the fields. Shechem and Hamor really felt the consequences of that. Anyway, apparently rape is seen again as a crime against the honor of men. So this is not a crime against Dinah or that Hamor or that Shechem is like a bad person who is hurting another human, more that they have defiled the honor of the family of the woman. So this story, it seems, is about how Jacob's family, the men in particular, had their honor taken from them. And the OG author, whoever wrote the Bible, wrote it from the viewpoint of how this affected the men. There is no confusion or outrage from from Jacob. When Hamor comes to bargain for Dinah, seems that that's kind of what's expected. I mean, he's angry because there's been some defilement, and they're not who he would give his daughters to originally. But nobody writing the story cares about Dinah at all. Again, it's completely possible that Dinah and Shechem were into each other, but that makes matters so little because no one gives a shit about women at this point in time. So, what are we to take from this story? Since we're able to believe that this book is, or so if we're believing that this book is inerrant, right? No errors. Everything written in this book is a teaching. It teaches solidly, faithfully, and without error that truth which God wanted put into sacred writings for the sake of salvation, which is what the Catholic Church via the Second Vatican Council expressed. So what are we taking from this story as an inerrant, written by God story to lead us to salvation? What truth is God trying to put forth here? Sounds like mostly that, like the earlier statement I made, that we shouldn't have narrow self-interest. That's the Catholic bishops. Sounds like defilement of a woman is an attack on the honor of a man's household. That's what we learn. If you're going to circumcise your entire town, you should train your women to be warriors. That's my takeaway. I don't think what the Bible author wanted you to take from this. But seriously, right? Like your whole town gone because you couldn't trust your women to hold swords. That's too bad for you. Ugh, that feels bad too, though, because really they shouldn't have killed everyone. But okay. What else? Justice is best served by tricking a city into trusting you. Wait until they're sick and kill all of the men, steal their shit, kidnap their women and children who thankfully have been taught they're useless and don't fight back. Right? Good way to handle your situations, right? Let's see. If your children do the above without your permission, right? Jacob's kids didn't ask permission to do all of this. You can go ahead and reap the benefits, right? Because now you've got all the women, children, and goods from this town, but you get to later disown and damn for future generations the children that started it. So sucks for you, Simeon and Levi. And another reason to have a bazillion children, because you disown 2 of your kids, you got like 10 left, right? 10 children to just keep going. I think that's the count on Jacob at this point. What else are we learning? Oh, right, women don't matter, as I'm pretty sure part of what we are learning in this story. Yeah. So this is one of those stories that makes me really question how anyone can continue to call this book inerrant. All jokes aside, is a real fucked up story. The woman doesn't matter. The men's honor is the only thing that matters. Their retaliation is to kill an entire town, take the women and children. It's kind of unclear who the good guy and who the bad guy is in this. I think maybe Shechem is the bad guy. That's kind of the vibe you get from reading this. Jacob is like a cool, neutral, whatever, head of the household. Simeon and Levi, I don't know, are they good guys because they're the only ones who care about her honor, or are they assholes because they're taking it too far, or because they care about her honor at all, or do they actually care about her honor and really only care about her honor, and that that their honor is in question now? What is this story? It's ridiculous. It's so bad. It's really questionable. I maybe if you haven't read it, give it a read. I think it's one of those though that I haven't heard very many times, because in the teaching of the church, they tend to leave a lot of stories like this out where there's not a really clear lesson to be learned. It's just, for some reason, a story in a book later used as evidence to why Simeon and Levi, I forget exactly what happens, but like Jacob, I don't know, talks down about them later on in some chapter that I haven't gotten to yet. And there's a note in there that like later he's like, Simeon and Levi shouldn't have done that. I don't know, a lot of questions. Anyway, Genesis chapter 34, Dinah defiled. Dinah is, I am going to try to commemorate her name because she is a person who was ignored and was made, interestingly, very few women's names are shared in these books, and Dinah is one of them, and she is treated like trash. She's treated like, obviously, it's something that is owned, right? This is something she is owned by this family to be used as like a sales pitch at some point. And the only reason that we're mad about what's happened to her is because we can't, we can't sell her off to the highest bidder. No. Ridiculous. Anyway, gonna leave it on that. Hopefully at some point I put an email link. I would love for you to join my email list. I put together homework for the next story we're going to do, and I tell you what we're going to do, and it's a lot of fun. So, and that's the only thing I share. I'm not going to send you a whole bunch of crap, right? But I would love for you to join me and have questions. If you have any questions, please comment. I love interacting. We're just getting started, so not a lot of comments right now, but I would love to get some interaction down the road. No matter when you've watched this, I will try to come back and comment. Okay, I will see you all next week, Wednesday. I'll have another story for you. I haven't decided which one to do, so I guess it's a surprise unless you join my email. Bye. Toodaloo.